I didn't marry Jake because I loved him. I married him because he wasn't one of us. The hem of my wedding dress was torn, soaked with mud and dew, clinging to my legs like it didn't want to let go. My bare feet pounded the forest floor, heart racing faster than the wolves I'd grown up running beside. Branches clawed at my skin. The night air was thick with damp earth and pine, but I barely noticed the sting. All I could hear was my breath, and the thud of my pulse in my ears. I didn't stop until the trees thinned, until the lights of the city glimmered below like an invitation I never thought I'd accept. Behind me, the world I was born into, a world ruled by bloodlines and hierarchy, where my name, Nora Saint, meant I would never be anything but a pawn. The Saint family, pure-blooded, elite, the heart of our pack, and I was their perfect daughter, promised to an alpha not by choice, but by duty. Garrett. I don't know what I hated more, his dominance masked as charm, or the way everyone expected me to smile and thank him for it. So I ran. Out of the forest. Away from the wedding. Away from a life where every decision had already been made for me. My lungs burned by the time I reached the road. A pair of headlights cut through the mist, slowing as they approached. The car stopped. Inside sat a man. Dark hair. Tired eyes. A button-down shirt with ink stains near the cuff. Not a threat. Just a human? He lowered the window. You okay? He asked gently, eyeing the mud, the torn lace, the wild in my eyes. Not really, I answered, trying to sound composed. But I could use a ride. He hesitated, then nodded. Hop in. I didn't ask where he was going. It didn't matter. His name was Jake. 32. Archivist. Lived alone in a quiet apartment above a bookstore. He didn't ask too many questions, just handed me a towel and offered tea like picking up runaway brides was a weekly routine. I spent that first night on his couch, wrapped in an oversized hoodie that smelled like cedar and printer paper. In the morning, he made pancakes. You don't have to tell me anything, he said. But if you need a place for a while, the couch is yours. Kind, simple, human. He wasn't like anyone I'd known. He didn't try to dominate a room. He didn't scent mark his territory with growls or posture. He just existed. Quietly, with warmth. Maybe that's what made me trust him. Maybe that's why, 2 weeks later, after late nights and quiet talks and brushing fingers over bookshelves, I looked at him and said, "Marry me?" He choked on his coffee. "Excuse me?" I smiled. "I'm serious. Nora, we barely know each other. That's the point." He blinked, studying me like I was a puzzle he'd never seen before. "You're running from something." I didn't deny it. He set down his mug. Okay. I don't know what kind of mess you're in, but you make the couch smell better, and I'm not great at saying no to people who look like they've seen hell." He said it with a soft grin. But there was something in his eyes, something curious and unspoken. I told myself it was just kindness. We signed the papers at City Hall. No flowers, no rings, just two strangers and a bored clerk with a stamp. That night, I lay beside him for the first time. His hand brushed my shoulder under the sheets. Warm, unhurried. "You're safe now," he whispered. I almost believed him. Jake's house was small but warm, with soft green walls and ivy creeping up a wooden fence that creaked in the wind. The kind of place where nothing loud ever happened. Birds chirped. The heater hummed. The air always smelled like coffee and old paper. For the first few weeks, I let myself pretend. I went to the market, bought cereal, forgot how to track wind direction, walked the same 2 blocks every morning and told myself it was freedom. Jake was steady, predictable. He made tea with honey even when I didn't ask. He folded laundry in silence and never pushed when I pulled away. I knew every sound he made. The way his feet landed on the stairs, the way his breath hitched when he was thinking. He smiled like someone who'd never had to bare his teeth. And still, I waited for something to snap. I told myself I was just paranoid. That the silence felt wrong only because I'd grown up surrounded by snarls and obedience. But the thing about instincts is, they don't fade. They just grow quiet, until something wakes them up again. It started with the mirror. The shower was cold, barely lukewarm, no steam, but when I stepped out the mirror was fogged over, thick, cloudy. I wiped it with my hand, confused. Behind me, The bathroom was still cool. And empty. Or so I thought. That night, the neighbor's cat, usually friendly, arched its back and hissed at Jake as we stepped out the door. Its fur puffed. Its eyes locked on him like he was a predator. Jake blinked at it, startled. Did I step on its tail or something? He asked with an awkward laugh. I shook my head but didn't answer. Later, as he brushed his teeth, I caught his reflection in the bathroom mirror. For one heartbeat, his eyes glowed yellow. Not bright. Not blazing. Just wrong. Like a flicker of something not human. I froze. He turned to look at me. And they were normal again. Warm brown. Soft. Concerned. What's wrong? Nothing, I said too quickly. You should get some sleep. But that night, I lay awake beside him, listening to the quiet tick of the clock and the faint, restless movements of his body. And the smell, so faint I might have imagined it. Something sharp, musky, not like cologne. Like fear. His, mine. I couldn't tell anymore. The next day, he forgot we had leftovers in the fridge. No way, he said when I pointed at the takeout box. I don't even remember ordering that. You did, I said. Last night? He looked genuinely confused. Huh. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe. Maybe not. I tried to shake it off. Told myself it was nothing. That I was projecting. But I knew better. When night came, I stood by the kitchen window, watching the moon cast silver lines across the floor. I didn't know what I was waiting for. An answer? A reason? A sign that I hadn't married something worse than what I ran from? My phone buzzed. Blocked number. My pulse skipped. I answered. I didn't have to ask who it was. Her voice came cold, clean, and sharp as ever. You always did pick silence over sense, my mother said. I said nothing. Living with a human, she went on, with something close to amusement. How quaint. You called for a reason? I said, voice tight. Yes. To warn you. I rolled my eyes. That would be new. You think you're free, Nora? You think a marriage license makes you human? Her tone darkened. Your blood is still ours. Your scent still leads home. Not anymore. She ignored me. Your little husband isn't what you think. There's something inside him. You feel it, don't you? My breath caught. I know what it looks like when something pretends to be soft, she said. Because I raised you to do the same. I hung up. The silence after her voice felt colder than the wind slipping through the cracks in the kitchen window. Jake called from the living room. Everything okay? I turned, forcing a smile. Just spam. They want to refinance our souls. He laughed softly and went back to reading. I stood there longer, watching him from the doorway. He looked like everything I'd once wished for. Normalcy. Calm. A man who didn't demand to be followed or feared. But under his skin, something stirred. And the worst part was, part of me recognized it. It started with the scratches. Thin, red, almost healed, but still angry on his skin. 3 marks across his back, like claws. I spotted them one morning as he stepped out of the shower, steam curling around his frame. He reached for a towel, humming softly to himself, completely unaware. Jake, I said, voice sharp. What happened to your back? He turned, startled. What? I pointed. Those. He twisted to look in the mirror. Huh. I don't know. Maybe I scraped myself moving boxes? These aren't from boxes, I said. They're deep. He blinked. I don't remember. And I believed him. That was the problem. He wasn't lying. I would have smelled it on him, felt it in his posture. But he was confused, honestly confused, which meant something else had happened. Something he couldn't explain. Or wouldn't. I waited until he left for work, then sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the indentation where his body had rested. The sheets still held his scent, mild, earthy, familiar. But beneath it, something darker stirred. Something warm and metallic, just below the surface. Almost like, no, not yet. Not without proof. I closed my eyes and thought back to my training. My mother's voice, clipped and cold. Don't trust what you see. Trust what you feel. The beast always leaves a trace, no matter how well it hides. And I had felt it. In the mirror. In his eyes. In his scent, when he forgot himself. Something was waking up inside Jake. And it scared the hell out of me. The dream started soon after. At first, he didn't tell me. Just mumbled in his sleep. Tossed and turned. Whispered names that weren't mine. Then, one night, I found him standing at the window at 3 a.m., shirtless, drenched in sweat. "Jake?" I murmured, padding over. "Are you okay?" His eyes didn't meet mine. He was staring at the woods beyond the yard. "I was running," he whispered. In the dream, barefoot, fast, I could smell everything, wet leaves, sap, fur. I knew where the deer was before I saw it. His voice trembled. And then I caught it, bit into it. And I didn't even feel sorry. He turned to me, chest rising and falling. "I don't dream like that, Nora. That wasn't just a dream. I could taste it." I reached for his hand. It was ice cold. "It's just a dream," I lied. He nodded, but I could tell he didn't believe me. Neither did I. That night, something shifted between us. We didn't talk about it. We just moved. His hands found mine under the covers. My lips found his neck. Desperation hummed between us like a current we couldn't break. It wasn't tender. It was raw. His grip tightened on my waist. My nails dragged down his shoulder blades. I kissed him like I needed to forget. He touched me like he was trying to remember who he was. The moon cast fractured silver across the sheets. There were moments when his skin felt too hot. When his breath came out in short, feral gasps. When I saw flashes of something in his face, wildness, hunger, confusion. And still, I didn't stop. Neither did he. We collapsed together, breathless and silent. My heart thundered in my chest. But Jake didn't look at me. He sat on the edge of the bed, back turned, head in his hands. "That wasn't me," he said. Quiet. Flat. Shaken. I don't know what that was, but it wasn't me. I pulled the blanket around myself, suddenly cold. "You were you," I whispered. "You just lost control." He shook his head violently. I've never felt that before. That kind of need, like I was going to break apart if I didn't touch you. His voice cracked. "I'm scared, Nora." I slid closer, pressed my forehead against his shoulder. Later, in the bathroom, I stared at my reflection. Dark circles under my eyes. A faint bruise on my collarbone. My lips were swollen from his kiss. But it wasn't my own face I was studying. It was the echo of his. I thought about the dream. The bite. The thrill in his voice. He wasn't a wolf. I would have known. But he wasn't a man either. Something else lived in him. Something primal, caged for too long. And maybe he didn't even know it was there. What if he's not lying? What if he really doesn't know who he is? And what if the thing inside him is older, wilder, and closer to me than I ever wanted? The knock came at 7:13 a.m., too early for packages, too sharp to be friendly. I peeked through the curtain just as Jake opened the door. The man standing there could have been Jake's reflection. If his reflection wore a $2,000 suit and smiled like he invented sharp edges. Same jawline. Same dark eyes. But colder. Cleaner. Calculated. "Lawrence." Jake's voice cracked with disbelief. "Hey, little brother." The man's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Long time?" Jake didn't move. Didn't invite him in. I stepped forward, barefoot, one hand resting on the doorframe. My instincts prickled like static. "This is Nora," Jake said stiffly. "Ah. The wife?" Lawrence's gaze flicked to me like a scanner. Interesting choice. He stepped inside without waiting for permission, just walked right into our kitchen, like he belonged. "Coffee?" he asked, already reaching for the kettle. Jake followed slowly, stunned. "What are you doing here?" "I came to check on you," Lawrence said casually. "Rumor reached the family that you're not quite yourself lately." Jake frowned. "What does that mean?" Lawrence poured himself a cup, leaned against the counter, and stared straight at him. "It means," he said slowly, "you weren't supposed to wake up." The silence in the room turned leaden. Jake's eyes darted to mine, then back to Lawrence. "What are you talking about?" Lawrence tilted his head, almost pitying. "You really don't remember, do you?" Jake didn't answer. You were part of a study, Lawrence said. Our father's final project. Suppression of unwanted traits. Let's just say, you were never quite normal to begin with, and we made sure you'd never know. My stomach twisted. Stop, Jake whispered. But Lawrence kept going. The experiments worked, mostly, until now. Whatever triggered the regression, it's not random. Something destabilized the block. His eyes flicked to me again. Or someone. I stepped forward, voice low. If you think I caused this. He raised a hand. Not blame, observation. He was dormant for 30 years. Then you show up, and now he's dreaming in blood. Jake backed away from the counter like it burned him. I'm not a monster. No, Lawrence agreed. You're worse, you're undefined, and that makes you dangerous. Later that evening she arrived, not with a phone call, not with warning. With black SUVs, tinted windows, and 2 silent men flanking her like shadows. My mother. Still regal. Still terrifying. Still wrapped in navy silk like a queen in mourning. I met her on the front porch, arms crossed, spine tight. You're not welcome here, I said. Her lip curled. Don't be melodramatic. I'm not here for you. I'm here for him. He's not your concern. Oh, Nora. Her voice dripped with condescension. You're not protecting a man. You're lying next to a fuse box. I didn't answer. She stepped past me into the house like it belonged to her. Jake stood in the hallway, jaw tight, eyes wary. She assessed him like a piece of meat. You don't even know, do you? She asked. He said nothing. She turned to me. Do you think you're helping him? You're accelerating it. Your presence, your connection, is triggering him. I stepped between them. Why are you really here? To offer a trade. I folded my arms. Of course. Return to the pack. Bring him with you. We'll keep him safe, contained, studied. And if I say no? Her smile was thin. Then don't come crying when he turns into something neither of you can survive. She left without waiting for a reply. That night, Jake sat on the floor of the kitchen, knees pulled to his chest, face pale. I feel like I'm being erased, he whispered. Like every time I try to hold on to who I am, it slips away. I sat beside him. I didn't know, he said. I thought my nightmares were just dreams. I didn't know my own brother helped erase my memories. I didn't speak. He looked at me then. Raw. Scared. What am I, Nora? And I had no answer. He told me what he remembered. Bits and pieces. Cold rooms. Wires. His father's voice calling him Subject Zero. Lawrence's hand on his shoulder. A needle in his arm. A sharp command, forget. A different life, hidden under a mask of peace. Flashback, laboratory. Fluorescent lights. Stainless steel. A boy strapped to a table. Breathing fast. Lawrence, younger, emotionless. The alpha gene is unstable. He's not a wolf. He's not human. He's something else. Their father, then suppress him. Syringes. Screams. Silence. Back in the kitchen, Jake's hands shook. I thought I was just boring, he said. A guy who likes books, who burns toast, who married someone out of instinct. I took his hand in mine. Warm. Trembling. You are still that guy, I said. But you're also more. And they're afraid of what that more might become. I thought I knew what I was running from. But maybe I was just running blind. Jake isn't the monster, but something monstrous was done to him, and now I'm not sure who's more dangerous. Him, or the people who made him this way. Jake's fever came out of nowhere. 1 minute, he was standing in the kitchen, reaching for a glass of water. The next, he was doubled over, sweating, trembling, skin pale and slick with heat. I caught him before he hit the floor. Jake, hey, look at me. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused. It burns, he whispered. Inside. I dragged him into the bathroom, stripping off his shirt. His chest was drenched. His heartbeat pounded beneath his ribs like a wild animal trying to escape. I turned on the cold water in the tub and eased him into it. He groaned as the temperature hit his skin. Steam rose off him even though the water was ice cold. That's when I smelled it. Blood. Not much. Just a coppery edge to the air. And something else beneath it. Muscle tearing, bone shifting. Wrong. I knelt beside him, gripping his hand as he writhed. "I'm here. You're okay. Just breathe through it." But his body wasn't listening. His shoulders spasmed, spine arching. I heard it, a pop, like a joint dislocating, but deeper. His skin shimmered for a moment, then stretched, like something underneath was trying to push through. His fingers curled, nails lengthening unnaturally before retracting just as quickly. His jaw elongated for a breath, just a second, then snapped back. And his eyes, God, his eyes, they weren't brown anymore. They were gold. Luminous, glowing, but not wolf gold, not pack gold. Something older, wilder, alien. He gasped and collapsed back against the tub, panting. "Jake?" I whispered, brushing his soaked hair off his forehead. He blinked up at me. "What's happening to me?" And I didn't have an answer. We didn't have time to recover. The knock on the door wasn't really a knock, it was a command. 3 heavy pounds, followed by silence. I knew who it was before I opened it. Garrett. Still broad-shouldered. Still smug. Still wrapped in tailored clothes like they gave him the right to control people. He didn't smile when he saw me. He just stepped forward like I was his to take. "You've had your fun, Nora. It's time to come home." I stepped in front of the doorway, voice low. "I am home." His eyes flicked past me. "With him?" A scoff. "You always liked broken things." Jake came into view behind me, barefoot, still pale, shirt clinging to him. But there was something new in his stance. He wasn't hiding anymore. Garrett saw it too. His nostrils flared. "You smell different," he said to Jake. "What the hell are you?" Jake didn't answer. Garrett pushed past me. "Step aside." But I didn't move. "Try it." Garrett bared his teeth, and in a flash, he lunged. What happened next wasn't instinct. It wasn't training. It was raw. Jake slammed into him like a force of nature. They crashed into the hallway wall. Garrett snarled, fangs out, claws swinging, but Jake didn't shift. He didn't need to. He moved faster, hit harder, bit deeper. He roared, and it wasn't a wolf's roar. It was distorted, ancient. It echoed in my bones like it came from something that had never belonged in our world. Garrett screamed as Jake's hand closed around his throat. Blood splattered the floor. "Jake," I cried, stepping in. "Stop!" His breathing was heavy, wild. But he looked at me. And in that moment, he chose. He let Garrett drop. The alpha of my past scrambled away, eyes wide with something I'd never seen in him before. Fear. He fled. Jake collapsed against the wall. I was beside him before he hit the floor. We sat outside, in the cold night air. He was still trembling. "I almost killed him," he whispered. I squeezed his hand. "But you didn't." "I wanted to." He looked down at his hands like they didn't belong to him. "I'm not like you, Nora. I'm not even like them. I don't know what I am." I turned his face toward mine gently. "But I know who you are to me." He stared at me, those golden eyes softening. "You're the one who stayed. When everyone else treated me like a thing to fix or fear, you stayed." He didn't speak. He didn't have to. We sat there in silence, side by side on the steps, blood cooling behind us. I leaned my head on his shoulder. "You don't have to be who they made you. You don't have to be what's inside you. You can be who you choose. And right now, you're mine." We left the house before dawn. No words, no plan. Just silence and instinct. Jake drove until the road turned to gravel, then dirt, then nothing but forest around us. We hiked the rest of the way. His steps unsure, mine steady. The same woods I once ran from now held us in a strange kind of embrace. Eventually, we found an old hunting cabin. Abandoned, broken windows, moss along the roof. Safe enough. Jake stood in the clearing behind it, arms folded, eyes locked on the trees. "I don't trust myself anymore," he said. I walked to him, slowly. "You didn't hurt me. Not even when you were breaking apart?" He didn't look at me. I wanted to hurt him, Garrett. I wanted to tear him open and... He stopped, breathing hard. "I was raised to believe that if you feel that way, you're already lost." His voice cracked. "My father, he told me that there was a sickness in our blood, that we carried something wild, wrong, and that it had to be buried, forgotten." I placed my hand gently on his back. His muscles twitched beneath my fingers. And what if it wasn't sickness? I said. What if it was just power no one ever taught you how to hold? He turned toward me. I don't want to become something that can't love. You already are something that can love, I whispered. I touched his cheek. He leaned into it like a starving thing. And then, quietly, he kissed me. This time there was no desperation, no panic, no need to prove anything, just warmth. Skin against skin, breath against breath. I laid him down in the clearing, beneath the trees that smelled like home and memory. His hands were gentle, his mouth reverent. Our bodies moved together like we remembered each other from a different life. No claws, no teeth, just hearts. Afterward, we lay tangled in a blanket of leaves, his head on my chest. He traced circles on my stomach. I didn't feel the beast, he murmured. I only felt you. I smiled softly. Maybe that's the point. But then something changed. His breath hitched. Nora. His hand gripped mine. I feel it again. He sat up sharply, clutching his chest. I touched his face, and felt it instantly. Heat. A pulse of something raw and ancient moving through him. Then my own body answered. Not in pain. In recognition. My heartbeat synced with his. My breath caught. The wolf I'd buried inside me, hidden so deep I'd forgotten how she sounded, howled in response. He gasped, eyes locking on mine. I can see her, he whispered. Inside you. And I saw him. Not just Jake. Not just the man or the broken memories. The thing inside him. Not a wolf. Not a monster. Something in between. And it was looking at me with wonder. Our connection crackled like lightning between skin. Not burning. Binding. Resonance. You're not alone, I said softly. Neither of us are. The wind shifted. I felt it before I heard the car. By the time the black SUV crunched over the leaves and came to a stop near the edge of the trees, Jake was already standing. Lawrence stepped out like he was walking into a boardroom. No smile this time. Just calculation. I gave you time, he said, straightening his coat. I gave you space. But now the data's unstable. The subject is progressing without regulation? Jake stepped forward. I'm not your subject. No, Lawrence said. You're a variable, an unpredictable one. His eyes flicked to me. And she's the catalyst. Again. Jake moved in front of me. Just one step. Subtle. But absolute. Try to take her, he said, voice low, and I won't hold back this time. Lawrence looked at him for a long moment. And, for the first time, I saw hesitation. He glanced over his shoulder at the woods. At the emptiness around him. At the quiet power radiating from Jake's skin. I hope you know what you're becoming, he said. Because I guarantee you, they will come for you. Then he turned and walked back to the car. We stood there in the clearing long after the engine faded. Jake's hand found mine. No claws. No fire. Just warmth. I didn't shift, he said. No, I replied. You chose. He looked at me, eyes golden and soft. And I'll keep choosing. He didn't lose his humanity. He found it. The abandoned hangar stood like a carcass at the edge of the clearing. Rusted steel bones, broken windows, and a floor soaked in oil and secrets. Jake and I stepped into the dark together. The scent hit us first. Feral, wrong, manufactured. Lawrence stood at the far end, clipboard in hand, calm as ever. His suit remained spotless, even here. I thought you'd come, he said. Curiosity has always been your weakness, little brother. Jake didn't answer. He didn't need to. The sound behind us, metal doors sliding shut, told me this wasn't just a conversation. It was a trap. And then I smelled it. The thing he made. Footsteps echoed across the hangar floor. A shadow moved from behind a column. Broad. Misshapen. Wrong. It stepped into the dim light. It had once been a man. But not anymore. Its spine bulged under torn skin. Teeth too long for its mouth. Yellow eyes flickering with unstable rage. What did you do to him? I whispered. Lawrence didn't flinch. I accelerated what already existed. He was just further along the path than Jake. Jake stepped forward. You created that? I unleashed it, Lawrence corrected. Just as I will with you. Once you stop fighting evolution, The creature lunged. Jake moved. It was chaos, flesh and fury and force slamming into each other with a sound that made the walls shake. They were fast, too fast. Claws flashed. Roars ripped the silence apart. Jake fought hard. But not to kill. He ducked, dodged, held the creature down without ripping it open. He was stronger, but in control. He had chosen who he was. But the thing Lawrence made had no choice. No mind left. Just rage. Jake faltered, thrown back against a metal beam. The creature roared, coming for him again. I stepped forward. My voice rose, not loud, but commanding. Stop. It hit like a wave. My voice, the voice buried in my blood, laced with power I hadn't used in years. The creature froze. Not because I was stronger, but because I believed I could be. Jake pushed to his feet, breathing hard. His eyes found mine. And for a moment, we were two parts of the same whole. Wild and human, chaos and calm, beast and reason. Together. He stepped forward and pressed his palm to the creature's chest. Sleep, he said softly. And the creature collapsed, trembling, unconscious. Lawrence stared in silence. That, he said, was not supposed to happen. No, I said. It wasn't. Later that evening, on the road out of the woods, she appeared. My mother. She didn't speak right away. Just watched us from across the gravel with eyes like frostbite and fire. When she finally approached, her heels didn't sink into the dirt. Of course not. You created something different, she said, not unkindly. Not a wolf. Not a man. Something new. I didn't correct her. She looked at Jake. You'll never belong in either world? I'm not trying to, he said. She turned to me. You didn't find an alpha. You found something more dangerous. A path that can't be controlled. I'm not here to be controlled, I replied. She studied me. Then nodded. Just once. Then come back, she said. Not as daughter, not as bride, as bridge. I blinked. You want me to return? I want you to guide. They'll listen to you now. A pause. You're not running anymore. I didn't answer. But I didn't say no. That night, under a sky full of stars, Jake and I sat by the fire on the roadside. He was quiet. Still golden-eyed. Still gloriously strange. What happens now? He asked. We go forward, I said. Together? Always. I thought I was a runaway. A girl without a place. But I was always more, not a victim, not a fugitive, a decision, a force. Not hunted, chosen. The house sat on the edge of the forest like it had been waiting for us. Not quite wilderness, not quite town, just enough of both. The trees guarded our backyard like sentinels, and the breeze always smelled like rain and pine. A place between worlds, ours. Jake built the fence himself, not to keep people out, but to give the kids something to run along. Half wild, half lost, half too much. Little ones from broken packs or controlling bloodlines, brought here by whisper and chance. Young shifters who didn't fit the mold, didn't want to. Jake worked with them every morning, teaching them how to breathe when the world felt like fire in their skin. How to shift without shame. How to speak when they'd been told to stay silent. I watched him kneel in the grass with a boy who trembled every time his claws came out. And I saw a kind of magic no spell could replicate. Kindness, stability, recognition. The very things he'd once been denied. They trusted him because he didn't demand it. He simply stayed. And that made all the difference. I took on a different role. Word got out, first through whispers, then through messengers, then through formal requests. Not from the elders but from the daughters. Girls who didn't want to marry who they were told. Women who didn't want to lead packs with men they didn't choose. Runaways, like I once was. They came to me. And I listened. Some wanted help vanishing. Others just wanted a voice in their own fate. I gave them what my mother never gave me, options. Sometimes that meant offering shelter. Other times, it meant looking an alpha in the eye and daring him to try. I wasn't afraid anymore. And somehow, that scared them more than any fang ever could. One evening, Jake and I stood on the back porch, watching two of the kids spar in the grass. Clumsy, happy, howling at each other in mock wolf form. The sun dipped behind the trees, gold bleeding into shadow. He slid his hand into mine. I married you to feel normal, he said, quiet and thoughtful. But instead, he looked out at the yard, at the forest, at the line between what we'd escaped and what we'd built. I became myself. I smiled. You married a runaway, I said. And ended up with a pack. He turned to me then, eyes warm, the faintest glow still dancing in his irises. You were never just running, he murmured. You were leading. I leaned into him. Maybe, I said. But this time, I wasn't alone. That night, I stood barefoot in the grass beneath the moon. The wind was cool. The stars were out, and the trees whispered like old friends. I closed my eyes, let the silence settle into my bones, and felt the steady heartbeat inside my chest. Not frantic like before, not desperate, just mine. I thought about everything we'd left behind. The lineage, the fear, the cages dressed as tradition, and everything we'd stepped into, messy, strange, free, love that didn't demand shrinking, power that didn't require a throne, a home that didn't come with conditions. I thought I ran to escape my fate. Turns out, I ran straight into it, and this time, I chose it